There we are. Whoa, forgot to put us in the show. Welcome into the DFO DFS report. I was started talking and I was like, oh my God, we are on a black screen. My apologies. We are back for another edition of the DFO DFS report. It is Thursday, January the 30th. Hope everyone's having a fine Thursday afternoon. We have a 10-game slate on our hands. A bit of a busy day for both Zach and I. So before we dive right into the meat and potatoes, just a heads up, the charts are a little different today. I didn't have time to run the full with or without use, which is what I normally use for the data for today's show. I had to just kind of, go with the alternate route, which I do sometimes when I'm short on time, which is just combining the on ice stats for all the players on the line. So the charts might be a little wonky. They might be a little bit different than kind of what you're used to seeing in terms of like some of the top lines grading out as well as they normally would. So if things look a little bit funky, just know that that's why. There are disclaimers all over letting you know that that is why tonight. So let's get into tonight's slate. Let's start with the goalies. Andrei Vasilevsky is expected to be back for the Lightning tonight. He's officially listed as a game time decision, so not sure who starts there. But Jonas Johansson is also injured. So Matt Tompkins is up from the AHL. If Vasilevsky, for whatever reason, isn't available, expect Tompkins to get the start, but it should be Vasi. David Riddick likely to get the start second half of back-to-back for the Kings. Anton Forsberg goes for the Ottawa Senators. Unconfirmed who starts for the Washington Capitals. To my knowledge, they did not skate this morning. I'm projecting to see Logan Thompson. Wouldn't be totally shocked if it's Charlie Lindgren. We've seen some money moves towards the Senators this afternoon, which lends me to believe there might be a leak out there somewhere, and that it's going to end up being Charlie Lindgren tonight. So just stay tuned if you're planning on playing Logan Thompson. Obviously, he'd be a great play if he's in, but if he's not, obviously wouldn't be nearly as good of a play. Piotr Kochetkov likely to get the start for the Carolina Hurricanes. Arvid Soderblom confirmed to start for the Chicago Blackhawks. Really good outing the other night against the Lightning. Jakub Dobeš gets the start for the Montreal Canadiens. It'll be a Marc-Andre Fleury in what is potentially his final start ever in Montreal. He's expected to have a lot of friends and family in town for that one. Jonas Korpisalo gets the start for the Boston Bruins. Connor Hellebuck for the Winnipeg Jets. It'll be Ivan Fedotov in the second half of back-to-back for the Flyers. Sam Ersson let us down big time last night. Ilya Sorokin likely to get the nod for the New York Islanders. It is the battle of the DFO DFS podcast as the Edmonton Oilers, Zach's team, host the Detroit Red Wings. My team in Edmonton this evening. It'll be Stuart Skinner, and we are projecting to see Cam Talbot for the Red Wings, although unconfirmed. It'll be Dustin Wolf for the Calgary Flames. Unclear who starts for the Ducks. The Vegas Golden Knights will go with Ilya Samsonov. It'll be Elvis Merzlikins for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And the final game of the night, Seattle will roll with Joey Decord up against Yaroslav Askarov. So let's get right in to tonight's slate. We'll start at the tippy top with the Lightning and the LA Kings. The Lightning coming off a disappointing performance on Tuesday, a loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Tonight's matchup is much worse. Sorry, they lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. My apologies. Tonight's matchup is much worse. So it is difficult to really see them having a smash game tonight. Going to be a lot of top six against top six, then the third line against third line, fourth line against fourth line for the most part. So yeah, not great matchups here for the top six of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but obviously that top line has been spectacular so far this season. That second line, really good underlying metrics. Again, if I was using the actual data, they've scored a lot more than 1.0 goals for per 60 so far this season, but the underlying metrics have been quite strong for that line all season long. I just don't know how much Tampa I'm going to end up getting to tonight. Obviously, second half of a back-to-back for the Kings. David Riddick getting the start piques my interest a little bit. We've seen this Kings team, have a bit of a tough time on this road trip as well. Excuse me. So, I think that with the fact that the Lightning really aren't seeing much ownership whatsoever, the top line at just 3.3%, and the second line, wherever they are, might have to go searching here. 28th overall, under 1% owned overall. Obviously people slammed them in their lineups the other night and got burned by them. This might be a little bit of an interesting get different spot tonight. It's not something I'm going to go to a ton, but in a 20 max, I think sprinkling a little bit of Tampa 1 in here just for a bounce back performance. It's a veteran group that doesn't like to lose to a Blackhawks team. So second half of back-to-back, Riddick and I think there is reason to consider the Lightning tonight, but overall it's a pretty difficult matchup. The power play grades out pretty well tonight. 7th best over the last 10 games, facing the 13th ranked PK, which obviously isn't terrible, but the Kings fairly undisciplined as well. So I don't mind getting to a little Tampa Bay tonight just because it always feels like when chalk flops the next time around, they seem to pick things back up. What do you think? Let's start with the Lightning side of things tonight. What do you think about the Lightning tonight, Zach?
Yeah, sorry, a little distracted. Apparently, the Blue Jays are actually signing Max Scherzer.
Oh,
Let's go.
wow.
That's pretty
Wow.
sick. Sorry, a little distracted there for a moment. That is really cool. Yeah, I got some interest in both sides of this game. I don't really have a ton of interest, to be honest with you. It feels like a bit of a get different kind of contrarian spot here. I think for me, most of my interest is kind of coming in on Tampa 1 here. The grade out is the sixth best line to target here tonight on the slate. Their numbers together as a full line are obviously tremendous. All three of these guys, Gensel, Point, and Kucherov, they've had success in their careers against the Kings, all around a point per game, with Kucherov being at 1.3 points with 9 goals and 23 points in 18 games. It's felt like they've cooled off a little bit here as of late, and at $25,400, it's pretty restrictive to build around them in the grand scheme of things. I think there's some pretty solid value that you could kind of build around them here tonight. It does feel like a real pivot play, given that they're projecting for only 3.3% ownership tonight on the slate. It doesn't really have the feel of a very high scoring game or anything like that. I think the nice thing about this game is that it is the early start time here. So 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And, if it does end up being Matt Tompkins in the crease for the Lightning tonight, probably got a little bit of interest in this LA side of things, specifically around LA2. We saw them pivot their lines a little bit last night, getting Quinton Byfield with Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. I think I like that trio a little bit more than having Danault up the middle. So I might have some interest in sneaking them in at 5% on a full stack here. I think they're probably the only line that really has my interest from this LA side of things. It's kind of the status quo with the Kings, right? Like there's a couple of teams out there. LA is one of them where it's just like you never really know who to play because you never really know who's going to pop off or who's going to have that big game on any given Sunday. But it does seem like LA2 might be the strongest of the plays. They got the best matchup score, best line stats, probably the line that I would target there. But to be honest with you, not really a whole lot of interest in this game for me tonight.
Yeah, it seems like the Lightning have been kind of brutal as of late, but I mean, when you take an actual look at this top line, like Kucherov still has 16 points in his last 10 games. Gensel's got 6 goals in his last 10, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points, point per game player in his last 10 games as well. So that top line's still playing pretty well. And then, yeah, like obviously with Fiala now playing with Byfield, I think that makes that line a little bit more interesting. They led the team in ice time last night in terms of 5v5 usage. They didn't do a ton with it, but they were solid enough in a difficult matchup against the Panthers. So I think that they're fairly interesting again this evening. They grade out 22nd best overall. Really not seeing a whole lot of ownership. I'm pretty much with you. I don't think unless Tompkins gets the start, probably not going to be too heavy on the Kings or the Lightning tonight. Kind of looks like a 3-2 hockey game for the most part, and probably one that I'm not banking on. But I do think like whenever you get a line like Tampa, as low owned as they are, I mean Kucherov still drawing some ownership, but Braden Point at 0.9% ownership and Gensel at 1.1% ownership. I think I wouldn't mind getting them into at least one lineup tonight in a 20 max, but yeah, I'm not going too heavy on this game whatsoever. But David Riddick, not great. The Ottawa Senators will host the Washington Capitals tonight. It is a toss-up game here, 2.8 implied total on both sides. As I've mentioned recently, the Senators have really gone into a defensive shell since Linus Ullmark has gotten hurt. They've been very, very solid defensively. The penalty kill has been absolutely flawless as of late. They aren't generating anything offensively either. So there's really not like a whole lot to like about stacking Ottawa Senators games right now. They don't provide any offense and they don't give up much of anything on the other end of the ice. And it's been enough to insulate Levi Merlainen or Anton Forsberg, who's ever gotten the start, to continue to win hockey games. It's worked. It's got the job done for them. And I don't think that they're going to deviate from that plan. The Capitals themselves, really a team that's played pretty well defensively as well. The offense has certainly fallen off since the early season, hot run they had. But like this game, I think is going to be very low scoring, especially if Logan Thompson gets to start. I don't really think there's anything to like about either side of this game. The matchups are pretty brutal. The 5v5 metrics are pretty bad outside of kind of the middle six here for the Capitals, but we haven't seen a whole lot coming from that second line as of late. This game, by and large, looks like a very low scoring game that I don't have basically any interest in. You so take a look at the 2 penalty kills, the 2 power plays, just kind of polar opposites. Both penalty kills have been awesome, both power plays struggling. The Capitals have the worst power play advantage. This game is probably going to garner literally 0% of my ownership outside of potential goalie plays, and maybe the odd one-off defenseman or something like that. But if Thompson gets to start, I'm interested. I do worry that he's going to probably not face a ton of volume tonight, but he should be a guy that like literally gives up one goal basically. So the Top Guns for the Senators, ice cold. The Capitals not really scoring a lot either. I'm staying off. What are you doing with this game?
Yeah, pretty ugly all around here, right? I mean, it's the matchup scores aren't great, as you mentioned. Ottawa playing completely different brand of hockey right now. I think if there was a line for me to target out of this game, it would probably be like a Washington 2 mini stack of maybe like Pierre-Luc Dubois and Protoss. Protoss just continuing to shoot the lights out. I mean, this guy is just an absolute monster. I can't believe how quick he moves for a guy that's 6'6". It's pretty wild to see. But it is the 25th best line to target, as you highlighted there. I agree with you for the most part, though. I really don't think I'm going to be getting to much of this game at all. I do have some interest in playing Logan Thompson if he does get the start tonight. But other than that, man, it does feel pretty bleak. Might be some interesting defenseman plays from this game here. Some of these cheaper guys, but yeah, I don't really like this one much at all.
Quick update here from our guy Beebs. Owen Tippett is officially ruled out. He was pretty much expected to miss tonight's game after getting banged up last night. He's out. I didn't have him in the charts anyway, so we can move on as is. Brant Clark back in the lineup tonight. It seems possible. The Kings the Kings beat reporters were unsure whether or not Drew Doughty would go back-to-back nights after making his season debut last night after a long layoff, being out since September. So he did play 23 and a half minutes, something like that last night. So I wouldn't be totally shocked if he sits on the second half of a back-to-back. But I said yesterday, like, this is a guy that's probably going to step right back into his regular role and not really miss a beat. It seemed to be the case. So I would be, not all that surprised if Doughty remains in the lineup tonight. Okay, let's move on to game number 3. We've got the Carolina Hurricanes and the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks have basically just been chalk busters as of late. And I mean, it really is kind of maybe scaring people off because Carolina not garnering a whole lot of ownership. Maybe they're kind of just siphoning each other, the ownership from each other, just because the ownership is fairly spread out amongst all three lines. So potentially that's why there's not as much ownership coming in on one specific line. But Mikko Rantanen, Sebastian Aho, Jackson Blake, they've been fairly solid together so far. Obviously a bit of a concern we've talked about already with the dip in ice time for Mikko Rantanen, but I still think this line is extremely affordable. Jackson Blake's playing very well. His price is coming up, but at 19,600, I think it's a pretty good price point for as talented as this line is. Carolina 3 continues to just be one of the best value options night in and night out. Seth Jarvis is on an absolute roll right now. I think we'll be putting them in our lineups again tonight. And Carolina 2 is somewhat interesting. Kotkaniemi's caught a little bit of steam as of late. Andrei Svechnikov coming off a big performance, and Taylor Hall seems to be fitting in pretty nicely. Played some big ice time in his first game, or second game, with the Hurricanes. So this entire top 9, you can kind of see why they're siphoning ownership from each other, because they're all seem to be like pretty good plays this evening. The top line draws the worst of the 3 matchups. The third line draws the best of the 3 matchups. So again, if you're looking at Carolina 3, if you want to full stack them with some of these expensive lines, I think it's certainly not out of the question. We've talked about it before, right? I actually think it was against the Chicago Blackhawks, in which this line helped me to 5K a couple weeks ago. These are the type of games where Carolina 3 can really smash. I like to play them a little bit more on some of the smaller slates. They seem to kind of get lost in the shuffle at times in a bigger slate, but this looks like a really good spot for them. Seth Jarvis as a one-off feels like a terrific play, but I don't mind full stacking this line at all. Maybe even just a stall Jarvis mini. There's a lot of options you can get to, but I also have plenty of interest in Carolina 1 as well. I think coming in over the field on a 10% Carolina 1 is a fine option too. So I certainly have interest. Maybe the days of stacking 40% owned Tampa 1 against Chicago are gone, but I have no problem getting over the field on the Hurricanes tonight in a really, really nice matchup. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you here. I got a lot of interest in the Canes here. I'm absolutely ready to get hurt again by Chicago and for Arvid Soderblom to just stand on his head with an incredible performance out of nowhere. My order of interest, I suppose, on the Carolina side is kind of the reverse order of their lines. Carolina 3, I think, is the most interesting option for me. Carolina 2, I got quite a bit of interest in them too. I think at 5%, getting a little bit over the field on them isn't the worst play at all. And Carolina 1, obviously, as I mentioned the other day too, I want to try and capitalize on this line and see what they can do early on here. I'm kind of wondering if Rantanen's price is going to start to come down a little bit here.
Has to, I think.
I think it does too, right? At $8,500, that's still pretty expensive, but he's also drawing the second most ownership of any of the players here for the Carolina Hurricanes forward group tonight. So, maybe this is like the little mini audition for Mikko Rantanen in Chicago. I know there's been a couple of reports that, the Blackhawks are extremely interested in bringing him in as a free agent this summer, just like I'm sure, there's 31 other teams that would love to bring him in as a free agent too, if possible. So I've got interest here on this Carolina side of things. I'm probably going to be over the field on all three of these lines in terms of their ownership percentages here tonight, and just try and capitalize on what looks like another great spot going up against Chicago. In saying that too, it's like, do we maybe think about playing a little bit of Chicago? I mean, the difficult thing is that it is Chicago 1 going up against Carolina 3 tonight. So that really makes it feel fairly bleak for me here in terms of the matchup. And it maybe gives me a little more confidence that, Carolina can smash in this spot, because, it has been Chicago 1 who's been doing a lot of the damage lately on these slates. And the rest of the offensive numbers for that top 6 are pretty bleak. And I mean, even the offensive numbers for Chicago 1 are not great whatsoever beyond their actual ability to score goals here as of late. So, the heater's going to cool off at some point for Bedard and Bertuzzi. Absolutely seems like the kind of night tonight that could happen.
Yeah, and this is a prime example of why I don't like doing the charts the way they are tonight. Like Carolina 3 grades out a lot better defensively than they look right here. The matchup would be much worse on Chicago 1 if we were doing it the normal way. So, going up against the stall line tonight, I'm off Chicago on a 10-game slate. Worth mentioning, though, too, if you are planning on targeting Carolina 1 tonight, Sebastian Aho missed the morning skate due to illness. He is a game-time decision tonight. I would expect him to play. Jack Roslovic skated in that spot, though, so if Aho's out, I expect Roslovic to be on that top line with Rantanen and Jackson Blake, unless they decide to just shuffle things around entirely. As I mentioned, when these two teams met a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, 10 days ago, Aho had a goal and assist. Jarvis had a goal. Kotkaniemi had a goal, and Jordan Staal had a goal. So a couple goal performers from Carolina 3 in that one. Wouldn't be surprised if they play well again tonight. In terms of the power play for this one, the Hurricanes power play continues to struggle. They've been 27th over the last 10 games. Hopefully the addition of Mikko Rantanen helps. They go up against the 12th ranked PK. The Blackhawks power play has been solid, but they face the 5th best penalty kill tonight. Worth mentioning too for Mikko Rantanen, like, yes, the ice time's down a little bit, but the shot volume has been encouraging. 5 shots and 3 shots in his first 2 games with the Hurricanes. I think it's only a matter of time before things start clicking for him as well. Looks like a really good matchup for that to happen this evening. Montreal and Minnesota. So as I mentioned, could be Marc-Andre Fleury's final game in Montreal. So if you want to play that narrative, interesting. Somebody in the chat, can't remember who it is, absolutely loved the money line for Minnesota tonight. I think it's pretty interesting. We've got them at plus 124. I think in some books they're down to plus 114. But I mean, they obviously really nice performance in Toronto last night. They got great matchups across the board tonight. I think it's pretty safe to say, though, once again, we're mostly interested in that top line only. The underlying metrics here don't look super strong. The way we've done things, but that's a line that is projected to play 33% of the ice time tonight. They fully correlate on the top power play unit. Now, top power play unit not in the best spot ever. Montreal's PK has been fairly solid as of late. 9th best overall. Obviously, no Kaprizov hurts the power play a little bit for the Wild, but I want to have interest in Minnesota 1. They grade out 2nd best overall tonight. The issue is they're also projected for the highest ownership on the entire slate. Which is somewhat interesting considering how good Jakub Dobeš has been as of late, or basically his entire NHL career here. But, the Habs, I talked about it the other day, the shine has worn off a little bit. Defensively, they are really, really bad at 5v5 again, kind of similar to where they were earlier in the season. So I think that opens things up. But the Wild really haven't generated much offense whatsoever at 5v5 either. Then you factor in the really good penalty kill here for the Habs. I don't think that this game ends up getting crazy high scoring. I probably am not getting all the way up to the field on Minnesota 1. I think they're in a good enough spot, but if Dobeš continues to play well, I mean, there's no reason to expect that the Habs can't win this game like 3-2 or something like that. So I don't know how much Minnesota I'm actually going to get to. I think the price tag is pretty reasonable for them at $19,500. Eriksson Ek has got really, really good shot volume, nice floor at $5,900. Zuccarello is probably a little bit too cheap at 61. Boldy probably fairly priced at 7,500. It's not too cheap, but I just don't know if I want to meet the field at 15%. I think it's just a touch too high. I'll probably be a little bit lower, but have some exposure to them. What are you thinking here about the Minnesota side of things?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they're the chalkiest line on the slate tonight. I do think it's a good spot. They're grading out as the second best line to target overall here tonight. I think I'd probably be comfortable coming in under the field here as well in terms of a full stack, maybe around 10% and maybe getting a little bit of exposure to this top line through some mini stacks as well, which I don't think is the worst route to go here in this spot. I think most of my interest in terms of a mini stack will come through Matt Boldy and Joel Eriksson Ek. Just the shot volume that they've had here as of late over their last 20 games has been excellent. Boldy, 9.3 shots on goal per hour. Eriksson Ek, 9.1 shots on goal per hour. What's really interesting is both of these guys are really due for some goals here to come at some point soon. Boldy, 0.7 goals per hour over his last 20 games versus 1.3 expected. And Joel Eriksson Ek, 0.8 goals per hour versus 1.2 expected. So their shooting percentages are probably a little too low for where they are right now. Probably bound to have some bounce back at some point in time. So I think when we're going to have them on pretty much any slate, I'm going to have interest in them here and banking on, a big breakout performance from them here coming pretty soon. But I do think that I'm okay with getting under the field here on this line. I don't think it's, out of the picture to kind of take a bit of a stand on that spot here tonight. They are projecting for like almost 3% more ownership than Calgary 2 is the second chalkiest line on the slate tonight. So I think for me, that's the way that I'm going to go, be under the field in terms of a full stack and maybe end up meeting the field on individual ownership through a couple of mini stacks.
Yeah, Jan.30 is 5-0-1 with a 193 goals against average, 933 save percentage, passes the eye test as well. The one thing that's really notable about Minnesota 1, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of special teams to speak of last night. The Wild capitalized on the power play in just 4 seconds. So most of yesterday's game was played at 5v5. This line played 16-40 at 5v5 together last night, generated 17 shot attempts. I mean, they didn't necessarily dominate the game or anything, but they played a ton. So they're going to be out there alone tonight. But yeah, you still got to solve Dobish, who, pretty much anybody, and he's played some very stiff competition. Nobody's really been able to solve him as of late. So then you take a look at Marc-Andre Fleury. Obviously, we talked about the narrative there. He's had some really up and down performances as of late. I would say, maybe a little bit more good than bad, but 4-2 in his last 6 with a 915 save percentage. His last 3 starts, so he's given up 5 goals in 2 of the last 3. So kind of an interesting spot here for the Habs. We know that this top line's playing really well. We've seen Uri Slafkovsky's offense really start to pick up as of late. He's not drawing much ownership at all at 4.5% and just $4,300. The other two, Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, are among the highest owned forwards on the entire slate. If we take a look here, Caulfield is the 3rd highest forward on the slate. Suzuki inside the top 10. So I do think this is a fairly interesting spot for Montreal. The offensive numbers have been really, really strong. The matchup, not ideal, but not horrendous. They're going to see a lot of Joel Eriksson Ek. They're also going to see a lot of that second line for the Minnesota Wild tonight. I think it's a reasonable matchup. Like we saw the top line of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which obviously we know is quite good with Matthews, Marner, and McMahon, have a really solid night last night. They generated 26 shot attempts in just under 16 minutes. They had 8 scoring chances, 4 high danger chances. So they were able to generate a very similar matchup last night. I do think that Montreal can probably do the same this evening. And then we've talked about it. The Habs power play has been bad, but the Minnesota Wild penalty kill has really been struggling as of late. So, if they don't necessarily have the best night at 5v5, they've always got that power play to fall back on. Hopefully they can get things clicking because this Wild PK has struggled. So I do have some interest in Montreal 1. I haven't really been playing the depth of Montreal. I haven't really gotten down to that second line very often. More often than not, maybe a Patrick Laine one-off, but at $6,700, I just don't feel like it's necessary when Cole Caulfield's 61, Suzuki's 56, and Slafkovsky's 43. So it just seems like he feels very mispriced, and this top line feels mispriced as well, given how well they've played. So I've got a hefty amount of interest in Montreal 1 tonight, and I probably like Montreal 1 more than I like Minnesota 1, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's spicy. And I don't mind that at all, honestly. And I think for me, the big reason is Slavkovsky's ownership at 4.5% here, right? I mean, you take a look at it, it's 10.5% to full stack these guys in terms of what the field is doing. But if you do two full stacks of Montreal one in your 20 max, which I think I have no problem doing here tonight, you're getting over the field on Slavkovsky. I like that spot here quite a bit. You mentioned his little offensive outburst here as of late, 1.1 goals per hour of ice time over his last 20, shooting 20%, up 8% from his season average as a whole, and 2.5 points per hour. I mean, he's been finding ways to be productive here as of late for the Montreal Canadiens. Cole Caulfield, obviously the big shooter on this team here, 12.3 shots on goal per hour of ice time over his last 20 games. I saw somebody mention it in the chat there, Michael S. saying, he's on the other side of Minnesota saying he wants the Montreal side, and Marc-Andre Fleury gets crushed in front of his family. Well, it's kind of interesting because Fleury's kind of had some struggles against the Canadiens throughout his entire career. But I don't know, man. It seems like a bit of a tough spot to think that might happen here tonight. Got to imagine that this is a game that he's going to be pretty excited to play in here, right in front of the hometown crowd.
So I don't know if he's wishing that he gets crushed in front of his family. I think he's just saying it might happen. I hope no one's wishing that. I think Marc-Andre Fleury is an absolute gem, and I'm rooting for him tonight. It'd be, I think, really special for him to go out on a high note. But at the same time, if I'm stacking Montreal, I hope, I wouldn't hate it. Juraj Slafkovsky, 4 goals, 2 assists in his last 7 games. He's been really, really solid. So yeah, that line looks really interesting. And we talked about it. I think it was on Tuesday. Lane Hutson's prices come way, way down as well. So to full stack that power player or to full stack this line with Lane Hutson is super, super affordable. Michael S. Definitely not wishing it, just purely a bet perspective. Totally fair. Totally reasonable. Okay, let's get to game number 5, I think it is. The Boston Bruins and the Winnipeg Jets. Somebody pointed out in the chat a little bit earlier. Me and you talked about it a little bit pre-show. Really like this spot for the Winnipeg Jets. Another big game. I was on them on Tuesday. Another really big outing from them. We've seen this Boston team. They got absolutely run over by Buffalo the other night. They're really struggling defensively. 2.95 expected goals against per 60 at 5v5. Horrendous on the penalty kill as well. Really struggling. They've basically got the 3rd or 4th worst defense at 5v5. One of the worst PKs on the slate tonight. So this is a really nice spot for Winnipeg, who's coming in playing extremely well. Again, not amazing numbers at 5v5, but that top line always seems to be the one that's driving the offense. The power play has just been absolutely scorching hot as of late. So really difficult power play matchup here for the Boston Bruins because the Jets power play comes in ranked 2nd up against the 29th ranked PK. Really good spot here for for Winnipeg one, The matchup, obviously pretty good. They're going to see a mix of that top 6 for the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins top 6, not very good defensively. So this is a team as a whole that is, it's been kind of a funky season, right? You had the Bruins come out, play piss poor to start the season, got the coach fired. Then they had that little coach bump after Sacco was brought on, and that shine has kind of faded as well, and they are back to kind of what they were playing earlier in the season. Now, getting Charlie McAvoy back in the lineup tonight certainly going to help that blue line. It's not totally surprising to see the fact that they struggled against the Buffalo Sabres the other night. They were missing 3 of their top 4 defensemen in McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, and Hampus Lindholm. So they were extremely shorthanded on the back end. They'll get McAvoy and they'll get Carlo back tonight, which will definitely help. But it doesn't really scare me off Winnipeg, and that's for a couple of reasons. The penalty kill was struggling before McAvoy got hurt, and the power play has been so good for Winnipeg this season. It doesn't matter who they go up against. They've been scoring against everybody. This matchup, I have no issues. Korpisalo getting the start also helps. And then the final point, Winnipeg won just 3.5% owned. 4.4% for Kyle Connors, 5.7% for Mark Scheifele, 0.4% for Gabe Vilardi. Sign me up.
Yeah, 100%, man. I love this spot here. I mean, the 5-on-5 numbers look solid for these guys here as a whole, but that power play, man, it just seems like such a smash spot for them here tonight. They seem almost inevitable at this point in the season. They've been just so good, continuing to chug along on a regular basis. So, the ownership 3.5% coming in on Winnipeg one. I'm easily going to be, 3 times the field on that number here tonight in this spot. So no issue building around them here. I've got a Kyle Connor, Gabe Vilardi mini stack in the DFO head-to-head lineup here tonight. Like I said, I'll be well over the field on these guys who've really just continued to smash. All three of these guys, their shooting percentages are up in the 20s, but they've managed to hold on to them throughout the entire season here. They're continuously racking up points. This is where all the offense is coming from the Winnipeg Jets. Nick Ehlers, he's been pretty great as of late too. But $7,100 for Ehlers versus $6,200 for Gabe Vilardi. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer here to be in on Winnipeg 1 tonight. All three of these guys, they've had success in their careers going up against the Boston Bruins as well. So, no issue hammering in some Winnipeg 1 here tonight. 9th best line to target on the slate. I don't mind the idea of maybe sneaking in a little bit of Boston 1, maybe just some David Pastrnak one-offs or a little mini stack here or there. He's loved to play against the Jets in his career. In 16 games played, he's got 11 goals and 18 points against them. Obviously a guy who just tons of shot volume from him, 12.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time, 1.9 goals per hour over his last 20 games too. So seems like a decent enough spot for Pastrnak as a one-off or maybe a little mini stack with either Geeky or Pavel Zacha up there. But I don't really think I'll be getting into much Bruins beyond that and probably jamming in a pretty fair amount of Winnipeg 1 here tonight.
Speaking of jamming in Winnipeg 1, SMK5430 says he will have 20x the field on Winnipeg 1 tonight. They're super, super interesting. I'm down. I'm definitely in. Just to give you some ideas here in terms of the numbers they've put up recently, last 10 games, Kyle Connor, 6-6, 12 points. Gabe Vilardi, 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points. Mark Scheifele, 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points. And then, as you mentioned, Nick Ehlers, 3 goals, 8 assists, including 7 primary assists, 11 points in his last. So that entire, their top 4 players have just been unbelievable. I will not play the Bruins. Like, that top line's been awesome. If Connor Hellebuyck getting the start tonight, not that interested. They were unable to get much going against the Buffalo Sabres the other night. We talked about that price increase on Morgan Geeky. It's come down a little bit back to $4,500, but $17,900. I'd rather pay up for some of these other spots that just seem a lot better not facing Connor Hellebuyck this evening. Let's get to the Flyers and the Islanders. The Flyers, we kind of know what to expect from this team, right? They very good defensively, didn't show up last night. This looks like just a super, super low event game. In terms of the actual pace, it looks okay, but the matchups are pretty bad on both sides. Plus, you've kind of got the uncertainty of what the Flyers lines are going to look like without Owen Tippett. This is kind of what they went to yesterday. There was mostly a blender, but Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, Travis Konechny, Scott Law, Sean Couturier, Matvei Michkov, Forrester, Cates Brink. Really have no idea, especially after getting blown out last night. Like, Torch could just put TNT into this lineup and just completely blow it up. The one line I think will most likely be together is Forrester, Cates Brink. They did literally nothing last night. To me, they're still always an okay filler line, but I like Ilya Sorokin a lot between the pipes. Tough second half of back-to-back here for the Flyers. The Islanders have been playing pretty well as of late, too. Like, I don't think they're getting enough credit for how well they've played, but both these teams very good defensively. The Islanders penalty kill, maybe getting a bit fortunate with how good Sorokin's been, but a 96 save percentage on the PK as of late. Just 1.73 goals against per 60 on the PK is insanely good. So this looks like a really low-scoring game. I might have a little bit of interest on the Islanders side of things just because Fedotov's getting the start for the Flyers, but like I said, they've been so good defensively. I don't think I'm going to get too carried away. Maybe get to 10%, just be a shade over the field here. Because this top line has performed extremely well. Price tags are starting to come up. If I recall correctly, we were looking at about like $5,700 for Horvat, maybe $6,000 for Barzal last week. Lee was, I think, his price has actually come down. It's going the opposite way, but $18,800. I think I'd get to 10% tonight. Won't get too carried away. That's probably the only play I have from this game. I don't mind getting to the Islanders second line in a better matchup, but that just is not the matchup tonight. Where are they? They got to be around here somewhere, right? And 46. Yeah, we'll just pass. They are garnering 5% ownership tonight. They are super cheap, but this matchup just, even with Fedotov getting the start, doesn't seem super ideal. Fedotov feels like he's been a little bit better as of late, too. Like, am I just dreaming that up? Let's see. Yeah, he's been a little better. He just hasn't been horrendous. So, he's actually been a lot better. So, his first 8 starts of the season, he had an 874 save percentage. And in his last, 7 starts? So last 7 starts, he's at an 891 save percentage. So not horrendous. He's been much better, but still not very good. What are you doing with the Islanders and Flyers here tonight?
Guess I got to play a little bit of the Islanders tonight. It seems like a pretty good spot. Feels like the prices maybe come down a little bit on this Islanders top line here with Horvat, Barzal, and Anders Lee. I think I'll mix in like 5% of them just to kind of get a little bit of exposure. They're grading out fairly well as the best line to target here. 5%, gets you a little bit under the field on what they're projected for right now. I think that's a fine play. And I kind of agree that that's really where most of my interest is coming in on this game. The second line, they've had success against the Flyers in their career, all three of those guys, Brock Nelson, Anthony Duclair, and Kyle Palmieri. But man, over their last 20 games, there's just really not much happening from these three guys when they're out there on the ice in terms of driving offense. There's pretty much no shot volume to be found from these three guys. Given their price point at $12,900, feels like there's some much better plays that are around very similar price points tonight. So I think I'm comfortable sprinkling in a little bit of this Islanders top line, fading this second line, no interest in that third line. The Flyers side of things, I kind of want to get there a little bit, but I do think Sorokin's a solid play too. I'll probably go back to the Philly 3 well here again tonight. I mean, they're just a solid line that's really cheap to full stack if you want to do that. But, mini stacks is kind of the way that I go here, usually around Noah Cates and Tyson Forrester. So that's probably going to be it for this game for me.
It's worth mentioning that these two teams have met twice in like the last 2 weeks. Matt Barzal goal and an assist. Matt Barzal had a goal. Bo Horvat had a goal and an assist. Anders Lee had a goal. This was a couple days ago, a couple games ago, excuse me. And then the other game, we had a goal and assist from Brock Nelson. Palmieri had 2 assists tonight, but Barzal had another assist. Horvat had a goal. So the Islanders top line has definitely found some success against the Flyers, and this is literally within the last 2 weeks. So as good as they've been defensively, the Islanders have found a way kind of around it as of late. I certainly don't mind getting to that top line a little bit tonight with Fedotov. Between the pipes, we see here their offensive metrics just continue to stand out in a big, big way. So I don't mind getting there. As we break down the next game, or as you break down the next game, which is perfect that it's the Oilers because I'll let you go off for a few minutes. Somebody just pointed out in the chat that the FanDuel prices are all wrong on the FanDuel chart. So while you're chatting about the Oilers, I'm going to go ahead and fix the FanDuel charts. I got DraftKings prices only over there. But before we get to that game, just really quickly, the power plays in this game. The Islanders power play continues to stink, 28th overall, but they do face the 20th ranked PK tonight. But this is a game where both teams not projected to see a whole lot of power plays. Both teams pretty disciplined. So as we mentioned at the top, Zach's Edmonton Oilers host my Detroit Red Wings tonight. The Oilers are massive favorites, minus 254 home favorites, 2.9 implied total. The Oilers are expected to roll with some different lines that we have seen relatively recently. Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Connor Brown, Bud Coles, and Draisaitl Arvidsson, Skinner, Henrik, Hyman on the third line. Matchup-wise for the Oilers tonight, pretty good. Obviously not great on the Red Wings side of things, but I guess I'll just let you start with the Oilers because I'm going to do these FanDuel charts, but I'm assuming you're jamming them in as much as possible tonight.
Yeah, I think I'll be jamming them in for sure. I don't know if I would go as much as possible. First of all, apologies, T2. I misunderstood what your question was in the chat there, so please ignore my response. I've got some interest in some Oilers here. Honestly, I don't really love the makeup of this forward group the way that it kind of is, especially when it comes to, the top line. Connor Brown sliding up there alongside Connor McDavid and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, really going to bring the salary down for these guys as a full stack because both Edmonton 1 and Edmonton 2 are $16,900 to full stack here tonight. I've got interest in these guys for sure. I think the big thing for me is that we're not really seeing a lot of shot volume coming from this Oilers top line here right now. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 6.7 shots on goal per hour over his last 20. Connor McDavid really not shooting the puck a whole lot this year at all. Only 6.0 shots on goal per hour over his last 20. And Connor Brown, well, he doesn't really shoot the puck a whole lot whatsoever. He is only $2,700. I'll probably have him in a full stack or two of Edmonton 1 here, but I think I like going around some McDavid and Nugent Hopkins mini stacks. The power play looks like it's in a pretty great spot here tonight going up against the Red Wings. Oilers coming in with the 6th ranked power play over the last 10 games, going up against a 28th ranked penalty kill. It is worth noting Detroit is still a fairly disciplined team, only shorthanded 2.5 times per game over their last 10. So, I like building around this Oilers power play unit here. I'm going to have some Edmonton 1. I'm going to have some Edmonton 2 for sure. I might sprinkle in a little bit of this Edmonton 3 line. I talked about them a little while ago. We've seen very limited ice time for these guys so far. I think only about about 25 minutes at 5-on-5 for these guys. But I really like the makeup of this line as a whole. I kind of hope that Chris Knobloch gives them a little bit of runway here to see what they can do. But Jeff Skinner's been just in the doghouse all season. So, I think for me, like, I'll be comfortable getting over the field on Zach Hyman's ownership tonight at 4.2% in some Edmonton power play 1 builds. Same thing with Leon Draisaitl, projecting for just 6.1% ownership here. That's really not a whole lot. I called him a Tias Janmark goal against the Seattle Kraken a couple of days ago. Game prediction today was actually a Colton goal at 5-on-5 on the season. He's got like 9.7 individual expected goals against only 6 actual goals. His shot volume's increased here as of late over the last little while, which has been really nice to see as I go full robot mode apparently.
Yeah, you are.
Everybody.
Yeah, so Zach is full robot mode, but I got the FanDuel charts fixed, so we're falling apart here, but we're doing fine. The Red Wings power play or penalty kill continues to suck. So obviously the Oilers power play seems like it would be in a fine spot this evening. But I agree, like it's I have a hard time, especially paying up for Connor McDavid when he's on this line specifically. Like, I don't have a whole lot of interest in full stacking Edmonton 1. I think most of my interest will come in on full stacking Edmonton 2, which has seen just 2.9% ownership. Really, really good stuff. Draisaitl at 6%, it seems great. So I'll definitely be mixing in some Edmonton 2. Edmonton 3 does feel like a reasonable value option. Seeing basically no ownership, $12,900. You still got some exposure to that top power play unit with Hyman. I don't mind getting them perhaps a little bit, but in terms of the matchups, it's pretty spread out. The underlying metrics, again, kind of hard to take a lot from this, but the top 2 lines obviously very good. We know how good Edmonton 2 has been so far this season. So I'm definitely interested. On the Detroit Red Wings side of things, it's top line or bust for the most part. Patrick Kane remains out. And with the Oilers being pretty good on the penalty kill, 18th over the last 10 games isn't the best. But this Red Wings power play, as expectedly cooled down a little bit, but they still have been very, very solid. But this top line with Marco Kasper, Dylan Larkin, and Lucas Raymond has been absolutely dynamite. They've been super, super good. They're only 15,300. Casper's run into a bit of a heater. They're seeing about 6.5% ownership tonight, which is very modest. I don't mind getting to some Detroit 1 tonight either. The price tag is great, and this top line has been just playing unbelievable as of late. Also, with some of the depth issues that they've got right now with the injuries and the illnesses and everything that's going on with the Red Wings forward group, this line's playing an absolute ton of ice time. So I like getting to Detroit 1 tonight as well. The ownership's pretty modest. The power play continues to be red hot as well. I mean, Lucas Raymond's literally been one of the best players in the NHL since Christmas. So really no reason not to go back to the well here at Detroit 1. Lucas Raymond, like I said, one of the best among the league leaders in points since Christmas. He's $6,000. I mean, are you kidding me? Way, way too cheap. So I absolutely love. You get great shot volume out of Dylan Larkin. He's been tremendous. And Casper still just 3K. Love Detroit 1. Probably more in Edmonton 2 than Edmonton 1. How is my robot friend doing?
Am I doing better, folks?
Yeah, you sound way better.
Thank God. So obviously interested in this Edmonton side of things, but I'm with you on this Detroit 1 line. I probably haven't played enough of them as of late here, and I don't mind getting them tonight in this spot. It feels like this could be a bit of a higher scoring game between these two sides, even though the pay score doesn't really show up that way. I like this spot here for Detroit 1. I'm going to be comfortable getting a little bit over the field on them in terms of their ownership tonight, projecting at just 6.5%. You mentioned Lucas Raymond. He has been just so good as of here. I'm just pulling up the numbers really quickly because I wrote about it a little bit today. Article.
You might want to shut the camera off, Zach, just to let you know. You are starting to go back towards robot Zach. But continue about Lucas Raymond because I can't wait to hear the juice. Spill the tea. Casper is too cheap. I agree. Everybody.
Okay, I'm switching microphones.
Okay, that's a play. That's a play. Let's see what you got.
All right. See if this works a little bit better, folks. Sorry, I'm going to have to address these issues here. Since Todd McClellan took over, Lucas Raymond has 7 goals and a team leading 23 points. He's been absolutely awesome as of late. Dylan Larkin leading the way in goal scoring with 9 goals and 21 points, the second most there too. So I've got interest in this Detroit 1 spot, and I've also got a little interest in Cam Talbot between the pipes. He is really cheap here tonight on this slate, $7,200. Going to see a good amount of shot volume. Since he left the Edmonton Oilers, In 7 regular season games, he's gone 3-2 against them with a 238 goals against average and a 925 save percentage. So a little bit of a revenge spot here as well if you're interested in those narratives for goaltenders.
Let's move on to game number, whichever one. I think 7. No, we're on 8. We got the Flames hosting the Ducks. The Flames 3.4 implied total -179. We've got the Ducks at 2.6 implied total +160 road underdogs. In terms of the matchups, you're going to see a lot of the Ryan Strome, Vetrano, Terry line going up against the Backlund line. You're going to see a lot of the Kadri line going up against the Leo Carlson line, and then you're going to see a lot of the bottom 6 facing off against each other. We really, really liked, well, I don't want to say really liked, but the value on Calgary 2 the other night was so massive, but we just kind of knew, like, yeah, they look like a good play because they're so cheap. Their floors are so solid, but like Logan Thompson's probably going to shut the door. I even said it was going to be 3-1, which it ended up being. The price tag has now come up a little bit in a much better matchup. They're one of the chalkier lines in the slate, but the value is still so good. At 12,500. Backlund's been really quiet as of late. If I was going to leave somebody off, it would probably be Backlund, but I don't mind full stacking this line at all. I don't mind one-offing pieces of this line. I don't mind mini stacking this line. They're in a great spot here. We know that top line for the Ducks has really struggled defensively. So a really, really good spot here for Calgary too. Coleman's been pretty good as of late. I don't mind getting back to them at all. Especially if John Gibson ends up getting the start. And then the rest of this Calgary team is pretty interesting, right? We've seen Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau play pretty well. If everybody's going to be jamming in Calgary too, I don't mind going down to Calgary, or I guess going up to Calgary 1. Huberdeau at just 5%, Kadri a little bit higher at 13.4%. I don't mind that mini stack either. I don't know how much of the third line I'm going to get to, but I think Igor Sharangovich is a solid one-off play, as you see here. He's garnering plenty of ownership. The public is on that one-off play quite a bit as it is, but yeah, it looks like there's a lot of like pieces of this this Calgary team, that is interesting tonight, specifically that second line. But I think you can get different with these other lines as well. How do you think about Mr. Robot Zach?
Well, I think that the Calgary Flames are an interesting play today on this slate. I like Calgary too. I always like Calgary too, and tonight's no different for me. Grading up as the 5th best line to target, 11% ownership coming in on them here in this spot. Calgary's a team that always seems to do better at home than on the road, so I don't mind getting to them here tonight. I don't mind sprinkling in a little bit of some of these other lines here too. The big thing with Calgary, just on a regular basis, you just get so much value from them, right? I mean, 14,500 to stack a top line, 12,500 for the second line, 8,000 for the third line. And they do a fairly good job of splitting up their ice time among these 3 lines. Obviously, the top 2 are seeing the majority of it, but even that third line seeing 25% of the ice time is a pretty solid clip there for them. So, I think for me, I'll most of my ownership will be consolidated into this second line for the Flames. Probably one of my favorite lines to target here tonight. So I think I'll be over the field on Calgary 2 in this spot, sprinkle in a little bit of this first and third line as well, and probably call it a day there.
Shocker. Zach loves Calgary too. What about the Ducks side of things? Like, I don't necessarily love this matchup. The Flames are pretty good defensively at home. Obviously, Dustin Wolf's played extremely well. You pointed out the other day that Dustin Wolf's been even better on home ice, or much better on home ice than he has been on the road. So I don't necessarily love this matchup. That top line is the one that really is interesting. But then the fact that they're going up against the Backlund line tonight doesn't really feel that great. I'll probably mix in a little bit of Anaheim tonight because they continue to be really, really cheap. Mason McTavish on a bit of a heater. I'll probably get back to him a little bit. $4,300. Nobody's really playing him. He'll probably end up with a lot better matchup than what the top line is going to. So I'll probably get back to like a McTavish, Jackson Lacombe mini stack, but I probably won't be doing too much stacking of Anaheim 1. They're good at 16th best. They are seeing a decent amount of ownership, not about 5%, 8% of it coming in on Frank Vetrano. So I won't have too much exposure to the Ducks here. The power play continues to struggle, but I don't mind McTavish. I like Lacombe as value plays, and that's probably it for me. Any thoughts on the Ducks, Zach?
Yeah, I think most of my interest in Anaheim comes their defenseman. I love to play their defenseman on a regular basis. Vetrano, I don't put him at $5,800 tonight. I think he's a solid one-off play. Just a nice floor with some strong shot volume there. But like you mentioned too, the matchup's not going to be the greatest for them here tonight, going up against that Backlund line in Calgary. So I don't know how much of the forward group I'm really going to get to tonight at all, but I'll definitely have some defensemen. Speaking of Dustin Wolf, it is worth mentioning one game earlier this year, coming on January 7th against the Anaheim Ducks in Anaheim. He had a 1 win, 2 goals against in that game, a 929 save percentage, and 17.2 DraftKings points. So don't mind playing some Dustin Wolf tonight here between the pipes. He's seeing 8.1% ownership, which is fairly high on this slate, but I think he's a solid enough play there at 8,100.
Yeah, third highest owned goalie on the slate at $8,100. Okay, 2 more games to get through. We got the Vegas Golden Knights and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We talk about the Blue Jackets road woes a lot. They've been a lot better on the road in their last couple games, but run into a really tough environment tonight in Vegas. Vegas team that plays extremely well on a home ice. This Vegas team is super interesting tonight. You got the top line grading out third best. Jack Eichel, the highest owned forward on the slate at 16.8%. The price tag at $8K, just too cheap. I still don't like full stacking this line that much. I feel like Mark Stone's too expensive at $6,500. Ivan Barbashev's fine at $45, but to me, I'm going to go to Vegas tonight. They don't grade out great on the charts, but man, nobody in the NHL really playing better than Thomas Hertl right now. Him and Pavel Dorofeyev have been unbelievable together at $5,500 each to stack. These two at $11K feels phenomenal. I absolutely love them tonight. The matchup for them is going to be pretty good. The Vegas Golden Knights don't do a ton of hard matching. So Vegas 2 going to be in an elite spot tonight. They are seeing 10% and 11% each. Nothing crazy. Like, I'll easily be double the field on Vegas 2. Absolutely love this spot for them. The price tag is just way, way too affordable. So yeah, like, you could get to Vegas 1 as well. They grade out a little bit better. Might have a slightly higher ceiling, but like, Hertl and Dorofeyev have been unbelievable. There's no reason not to get back to them. This is a great matchup for them. I'm going to be all in on Vegas 2 yet again, as I have been for weeks. And then for Vegas, I'll probably get to some Jack Eichel. I don't know how much Vegas 1 I'm going to do. Full stacking of Vegas 1. Doesn't look like the general public's going to be doing a lot either, with just 3.5% ownership coming in on Barbashev. What are you thinking here on the Vegas Golden Knights? And you seem to be a little bit clearer now, as I might have jinxed it, but hopefully the internet has bounced back for you.
Perfect. Hopefully the mic swap did the trick for me today. I've got some interest in both sides of this game, to be honest with you. I agree with you on this Vegas side. I think they're in a pretty interesting spot here tonight, specifically that second line. A little bit coming in with a little bit lower ownership, but the floors that you get from these guys is really solid, right? Thomas Hertl, 10.1 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Feels like he's really regained his form that he had when he was at his peak with the San Jose Sharks. Pavel Dorofeyev, we call him that for a reason, right? This is a guy, just tons of shot volume, 10.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Both of these guys scoring at great clips as well. So I've got more interest in this second line than I do the top line, but I'm comfortable sprinkling in some Vegas 1. I don't know if I'll get to 10.3% for a full stack. I've probably got more interest in some Jack Eichel and Mark Stone mini stacks like the rest of the field does. But Ivan Barbashev projecting for only 3.5% ownership is really low. If he finds a way to get on the score sheet, that's one way to kind of get your lineup pretty different if you are going the Vegas 1 route here tonight. In terms of Columbus, I've got interest in playing them here tonight too. This top line, they've been solid so far here with Sean Monahan out of the lineup. You take a look at their offensive numbers as of late. They're seeing 31% of the ice time, 3.2 goals for per hour. Solid underlying metrics, not spectacular or anything like that, but really kind of in line with what you see from like Vegas 2 in terms of their underlying numbers. So I think if we're comfortable playing some Vegas 2, I'm comfortable playing some Columbus 1. It is worth mentioning that Columbus comes in with 4 days of rest here since their last game, and Vegas is playing their 5th game in 7 nights tonight. So I don't mind playing some Columbus 1 here to get a little different. They're grading out as the 12th best line to target overall. So within that top 15 that I like to target for line stacks, only 2.6% ownership here too as a whole. I don't mind getting there here tonight on some Columbus 1, getting over the field and getting a little bit different from them. They're not too expensive to full stack either, which is really nice at $16,800. It feels like their salaries, specifically Voronkov, has really kind of fallen as of late. So I think this is a decent enough spot for Columbus. Obviously, there's the home road splits that we've seen from them this season. But they're well rested here coming in tonight. So I think that's the reason I like getting to them.
Yeah, Samsonov getting the start helps the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight as well. Samsonov just not nearly as good as Aiden Hill. It's been okay, hasn't been terrible. Just hasn't been great though. Still has a save percentage below 900. So I do think that Columbus won somewhat viable with him getting the start tonight. I think they're a pretty interesting low owned play this evening. Tom says, CBJ ranking number 2 on the PK. Is there a glitch in the matrix? Just a reminder: the penalty kill and power play data is strictly based off the last 10 games. And maybe you'd be shocked to know that the Columbus Blue Jackets have the lowest expected goals against on the PK over their last 10 games, best in the NHL. And they've given up just the 10th least power plays goals during that stretch. So yeah, they've been pretty good, but they run into a buzzsaw tonight that is this Vegas power play, which is just rolling right now. And let me bring up the team trend charts here a little bit as well. The Blue Jackets offensively have really slowed down as of late, just 2.03 goals for per 60 over their last 10 games. Pretty ugly numbers there. So I'm a little cool on Columbus one, but with if Aiden Hill was starting, I probably wouldn't play them at all. But with the matchup here with Aiden Hill, I don't mind it. Or sorry, with Samsonov, I don't mind it. But yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the overall numbers, but I still think that top line can get the job done. That's the line that's been really solid for them. The defensive metrics not great either, so I do like this spot a lot for Vegas, and that power play just scorching. Seen a lot of power play goals coming off the stick of Pavel Dorofeyev and Tomas Hertl as of late. Hopefully they continue that role tonight because yeah, Vegas 2. I mean, I don't know how much Vegas 2 I can get in tonight, but it's probably as much as I can handle. Beebs comes in here to let us know that David Riddick gets the start. No other lineup changes. So Drew Doughty will play tonight for the LA Kings. Thank you, Beebs. Back to your corner you go. Let's move on to the final game of the night. You've got the Seattle Kraken and the San Jose Sharks. 3.6 in play total for the Seattle Kraken. Not going to bury the lead here. I don't think on a regular day of the charts, Seattle would grade out number 1 overall. But on today's version of the charts, they do. And I kind of get it. And I'm going to let you know why. Their underlying metrics aren't unbelievable. They're actually fairly poor. But this line is playing massive minutes at 5v5 for the Seattle Kraken. They are leading the way by a mile. So they've got that going for them. They play a lot. The matchup tonight is splendid. They're going to see basically a mix of all 4 lines of the Sharks. The Sharks really don't have a line that excels defensively. So the matchup is good. They play a bunch. And then the power play looks solid tonight. They grade out second best on the power play tonight. Their power play hasn't been great, but the Sharks' PK has been horrendous. So Seattle's got a lot of things going for them tonight. They fully correlate on that top power play unit as well. So yeah, there's just a lot to like about the Seattle Kraken top line tonight. I think they could be a bit of an interesting late hammer. I guess they don't fully correlate on the top power play unit. I forgot Kako is on PP2, but you got Berniers, you got Schwartz up there on the top unit, then Kako on unit B. So yeah, I wouldn't personally rank Seattle 1 as the top line to target tonight. They are seeing a decent amount of ownership, but I mean, Kako at just 3.7%. Probably not going to see a lot of full stacking of Seattle 1. I think they are super interesting. Obviously, with Askarov getting the start tonight, he's great, man. He is super good. But, he can only do so much. And if Seattle gets as much run as they have been getting lately, I think they're a viable play at $15,000. They're not my number 1 line overall, but they're going to be in the mix for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you here. At 7.8% ownership, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a stand on Seattle 1 and get over the field at that number, maybe get it up to 15%. Just trust in the charts, trust in the numbers that we're seeing here from these guys. Offensively, they've been solid as of late. I mean, not spectacular, but Jaden Schwartz has really been leading the charge for those 3 guys, 1.4 goals per hour of ice time, 1.3 expected goals per hour over his last 20 games. So, if you go the mini stack route with Seattle 1, definitely include James Schwartz on that. And then you're probably including Matty Beniers as the other guy for some correlation. Power 1 Beniers, same sort of a thing, solid yet unspectacular, 1.1 goals per hour of ice time. He's shooting pretty high at 22% versus 12% on the season as a whole. Would like to see some more shot volume from him, but, as we've talked about, he's not a guy who shoots the puck a whole lot in general here. So I don't mind just some Seattle 1 tonight. I probably have some interest in the second line too. Eli Tolman, Stevenson, and Oliver Bjorkstrand. Probably more comfortable going like a mini back route of Tolman and Bjorkstrand here. Chandler Stevenson just really does not do a whole lot out there in general. And at least with Tolman and Bjorkstrand, you're getting some fairly solid shot volume. The one thing is that Bjorkstrand's like 5K, which doesn't necessarily feel the greatest to me. I wish the salary was, $1,000 less, just because he's really not scoring a whole lot as of late. 0.6 goals per hour by his time over his last 20 games, just 1.9 points per hour as well. But he has had success against the Sharks in his career with 5 goals and 14 points in 16 games played.
Yeah, the second line, I mean, Stevenson's kind of caught fire a little bit as of late. Tolvanen has specifically 3 goals in his last 3 games, a goal in each of those games, 6 shots on goal. Probably not going to continue to shoot 50%, but I think Seattle 2 is somewhat interesting as well, just 12,600. I don't mind, maybe more probably Tolvanen one-offs, but I don't mind maybe a Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand, mini stack. I just don't trust Stevenson's kind of recent run of hot play at 5.7%. So I don't mind getting to them, but I'd much rather get to that top line, which plays a lot more. Who's putting the microwave on at Oilers Nation while Zach's trying to tell us about Seattle? I'm just one of those days, eh, buddy? That's all right. We're almost through. It's almost the weekend. We can almost drink beers again. On the Shark side of things, I think it's viable-ish. With Joey Daccord going to start, we talk about how good he's been. I would probably only play San Jose 2, Eklund, Celebrini, Toffoli, 16,800, garnering very little ownership. They seem interesting tonight. The matchup for them is pretty decent. Again, not a whole lot of hard match in this game, so not a whole lot of matchups to talk about, but their underlying metrics have been quite solid. I don't, I could care less about that Granlund line. Really, they haven't done a whole lot lately. They've been solid. Zetterlund, Granlund, Will Smith, but I'm more interested in that Celebrini line. I just want to pull up the Sharks' most recent numbers here. So their last 10 games, Granlund does lead the team with 9 points, but then it's Celebrini with 8, Eklund with 7, and then obviously Toffoli missed some time. He's got 5 points in his last 7 games. But yeah, I just think that's the better line, the line with the higher upside. But Joey Daccord has just been probably too good to play the Sharks with a lot of confidence tonight. So I'll probably be staying away there for the most part. In terms of the power play tonight, they do have the 9th best power play advantage. But again, I feel like I'm more on the Seattle side of things. Just to point out Astrov. So prior to his really good outing against the Penguins last night, in his previous 4 outings, he had an .852 save percentage. So he is gettable. Sometimes he looks splendid. Sometimes he doesn't look so splendid. But, I think he's gettable. And I don't mind Seattle in this spot, but I'm not going to get too carried away. Zach, any final thoughts on the Sharks, or you want to just move it along?
Let's just move it along.
Okay, we will. Let's get to some defensemen tonight, Zach. I can kind of help close out the show here. Feel free to hop in if you've got anything. Lane Hutson, $3,900 seems really good. Rasmus Anderson's price has come up a couple $100, but still feels great at $4,800. Mike Matheson, $4,800 as well. Rasmus Anderson's $4,400. My pardon. I don't mind D'Angelo at $4K. Decent matchup there. Obviously not the best matchup overall, but not bad. Playing a ton of ice time at 4K, top power play unit, top pairing with all the injuries they've got going on there. I don't mind getting to him. Jackson Lacombe, we've talked about him already. $4,600 seems really solid. You talked about a couple other Ducks defensemen already as well. You've got Jacob Trouba, just $3,900. Drew Doughty, now that we know he's back in the lineup, at $3,500 seems really, really solid, garnering plenty of ownership this evening. Alex Carrier has been a really solid value option at 3K for the Habs this evening. Don't mind some of the Carolina defensemen, Dmitry Orlov, Sean Walker. In terms of ownership, most of it coming in on Shane Gostisbehere, highest projected ownership at 11.7%. I think at $4,100, he makes a lot of sense. Some of the other higher owned guys that, they all seem fine. With Riker Evans out tonight, you're going to see a few extra minutes for all of these Seattle defensemen, Vince Dunn, Adam Larson, Brandon Montour, to name a few. Zach, you've got John Klingberg making his Oilers debut. You got Tyson Barrie back in the mix, a couple of veterans at $2,500. Anybody else you really like on the blue line? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, we might have lost Zach. I will close out the show here. Are you back?
I'm back.
Back-ish. Any defenseman you want to talk about?
No. I think he covered him off pretty well there.
All right, let's get to the goalies. Kochetkov projects as the number 1 goalie, but not really going to get a lot of volume tonight. Has an implied win percentage of 81.5%. Vasilevsky seems really solid against the Kings tonight. If he ends up getting the start, projected to see a lot of volume at 8K. Seems like a pretty good play with the Kings on a back-to-back. Stuart Skinner, that looks like a higher scoring game. I don't mind him, but probably won't get to a lot. I probably prefer Dustin Wolf, $100 cheaper against the Ducks tonight. Samsonov's just a little bit too expensive for my liking at $8,400. Really, really like Sorokin and Logan Thompson if they get the start. They're projected to be the two highest owned goalies of the night. Sorokin at 7,600 feels like a great value against a Flyers team that doesn't possess a ton of offense, especially now with Tippett out, especially being on the second half of a back-to-back. Jakub Dobish at $7,500 has just been so good. The Wild in the second half of back-to-back seems fine as well. You can get to Decord if you'd like, just not going to see a lot of volume at $8,300. Dostal, if he gets to start, fine. But if it ends up being John Gibson, not really, as interested there. And then dumpster diving, maybe Askarov, I think. $7,100 against the Kraken seems fine. We just talked about how much we like the Kraken, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Sharks win this game at $7,100. I just mentioned he's a guy that can steal a game. So he would probably be my favorite of these dumpster diving options. But obviously, you're going to see a lot of volume for Soderblom. I'm going to see a lot of volume for Talbot, but Askarov would be my preference. Zach, you got any one-word answers for us?
Dustin Wolf.
Thank you so much.
Logan Thompson.
Oh, this is great. What a show this is. Let's get to today's hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, you can do so by commenting your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to nationgear.ca. You can pick up some DFO swag. Speaking of picking up some DFO swag, a bit of a funny story before we go. I left a backpack in a friend's truck the other day, and he texted me this morning that the truck got broken into, and the only thing they took was my backpack, and it had a daily Faceoff sweater. So if you guys are out here not picking hat trick pick winners, you don't have to steal my shit. You can just ask or just go buy one. So yeah, somebody's got a DFO sweater that's red hot here in Ontario. Hilarious stuff. So yeah, comment section of the video, not the live chat. Let's get to today's daily face-off head-to-head. Zach, I'll read your lineup for you because it's probably just easier at this point. Zach won 2 days ago, so he's now at a record of 32-30. He went with Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent, Hopkins mini stack, also a Jordan Stahl, Jordan Martin mini stack, Kyle Connor, Gabe Velarde mini stack, and he's got Rasmus Anderson, John Klingberg, and Jakub Dobish to close things out. I went completely different. Tomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeyev mini stack. I went with a Joel Eriksson Ek one-off, a Blake Coleman one-off, a Leon Draisaitl one-off, and a Seth Jarvis one-off. I guess mini stack of Coleman and Barry, if you want to call that, and a mini stack of Sean Walker and Seth Jarvis. I don't love it. I was pretty pressed for time. My lineups will not look a whole lot like this tonight, but there you have it. Hopefully I can make it 31-32 on the season. Zach has won, I think, 4 or 5 in a row. Tom wants to know if you bet Klingberg anytime goal tonight, Zach. Thumbs up. Yes, he did. This is the most fun I think Brock has ever had on this show. I mean, I just know how frustrated Zach is right now, so that is just killing me. Zach at least can text us. He says he's picking Seth Jarvis for his Hattie pick tonight. He's really hedging his bets since I've got him in my head-to-head lineup tonight. And then I'm going to go with Pavel Dorofeyev as my hat trick pick. Jim wants to know who's the Klingberg goal for or against. Now that's terrific stuff. Really good. That's going to do it for this edition of the DFO DFS report. Again, comment your hat trick pick if you want to get in. Zach will have better internet tomorrow, I promise. You might have to go back to the janitor's closet. Again, we give away a $25 gift card every day if you pick a hat trick pick winner. But every Friday, we give away a $50 gift card automatically to anybody that drops a comment in the live chat. We will do a live draw at the end of the show and give one away, $50 in Nation Gear. Shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of Rotogrinders and NHL Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Smash the like button while you're there. You can also join the DFO DFS Discord by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Join the community that's growing every single day. We'll provide all that late breaking news for you so you don't miss a thing. Zach, go enjoy a cold one, my friend, and we will see you guys back here tomorrow. Until then, cheers.